Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Testimony Tuesdays. I'm your host, Dr. Beauty, and today I have a special guest, Ayan, who is joining us from Abu Dhabi. So we're recording offline, and we're going to be uploading this later. But just getting into her introduction before I ask her questions. Ayan is a Somali American woman from Atlanta, Georgia, currently residing in Abu Dhabi with her husband and two children. She is an educator with a Master's of Arts and Reading, Language, and Literacy Education. She is an avid reader of books on self-development and spirituality. At heart, Ayan is a writer and contributes monthly to a website called wellspringwords.love, a platform centering the thoughts and expressions of women of color through written narrative. Ayan is also a health-conscious foodie and participated in a vegan challenge back in 2018 via Instagram, courtesy of the R&B singer Maya Harrison. She and three other challenge winners won a trip to Costa Rica with Maya for a week-long relaxing vegan retreat in 2019. Her IG handles are Ayan Fatima _ and Holistic Plant Life. So welcome to the show, Ayan.
Hey, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be chatting with you today.
Oh, likewise. I'm also excited to be chatting with you. So how have you been?
I've been pretty good. I'm happy that the lockdown here is done. It's been done for a few months, but it's nice to be out and about. Still taking precaution with COVID still in the, globally affecting us all. But yeah, I'm doing pretty well. How about yourself?
Doing well, thank you. And I hear talk that we're going to probably have another lockdown here just because the second wave is coming. So trying to get ready for that.
Yeah, I feel you. And you're in Miami, is it?
Well, actually, I moved back to Pennsylvania from Miami last August.
Oh, okay, nice.
Yes. So I've been
Yeah.
hearing the cases in Miami are pretty high.
Right. Yeah. Same here in Abu Dhabi. It's been going up as of lately. So who knows? There could be another lockdown here as well. So we'll just be prepared either way.
Yes. Well, definitely praying for the safety of you and your loved ones during this time.
Thank you. Same for you.
Thank you. So I usually start off these interviews with an icebreaker.
Okay.
So if you had to choose one meal to eat for the rest of the year, what would it be?
Oh my gosh. Okay. One meal to eat for the rest of the year. Wow. Okay. Oh my gosh. Okay. So it would. This is so boring, but it's like my go-to breakfast is just oatmeal. And I just like to put my little toppings on it, my chia seeds and whatever I have in the house that day, whether it's pumpkin seeds or. So that's pretty boring, but honestly, it fills me up and I could probably survive off of that easily to have it like any time of the day. So yeah, that would probably have to be it.
Nice. I actually really enjoy oatmeal, so I can't blame you for choosing that one. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's get into our first question. So you obtained your Master's of Arts in Reading, Language, and Literacy Education. So can you tell us more about what these areas of study entail?
Yeah, so back in 2011, I decided to pursue a master's degree. Um, and I decided to go for it's pretty much, to summarize it all, it's teaching English as a second language with a focus on literacy and language being English. So I decided to pursue it. It was a one-year accelerated program back in Atlanta and at Georgia State University. And honestly, I was at a point in my life where I had just graduated from undergrad. And I got into this program teaching students. It was in conjunction with a volunteer service program based in Atlanta. And they were doing a schools program with AmeriCorps. And so I went ahead and did that for about a year. And then I decided I'll just go ahead and do my master's to pursue teaching. Yeah, it was pretty fulfilling for me to do the master's. And I worked for a couple years teaching in Atlanta, working with mostly refugee and students that were new to the country or pretty much had little to no English. Their proficiency was pretty low. So it's been pretty rewarding for me overall. I'm continuing teaching here. Now I'm between jobs, I'm looking. I did have like a few moments where I was able to teach here abroad in Abu Dhabi. It was really because I'm a very like, I consider myself a helpful person overall. I like to help people, see people succeed. That was the best routes for me to take at the time. So yeah, that's why I decided to do the master's, is because it almost made me feel like, you know what, I could see myself teaching. I feel like I have, I guess you could say, the skill set to do it. So why not just go ahead and get the degree? So yeah, but I've taught English reading and English as a second language as well, on top of writing. So it's really all in that same realm of English language and literature and that sort of thing. So yeah, that's a little bit of my, I guess you say, my background as far as teaching goes.
All right, that's wonderful. And I think that's definitely needed no matter what country you go to, just having that access to English as a second language. In terms of teaching in the United States versus Abu Dhabi, have you noticed any major differences, or what was your perception of the experience?
To be honest, like, so when I started in Atlanta, when I started teaching, I worked with different, I guess you could say, types of students. So I work with young students in elementary school, middle school, high school, and then I've also worked with college, university level, and adults. Well, basically, they are adults, I should say. So the real difference that I've noticed is really the type of curriculum that's taught. In the U.S., the school that I taught at was for 2 years in a public school system. So the students there were different than the traditional schools that you go to, where it's just regular, you know, mainstream education. The students I work with in DeKalb County specifically were, it was an international school for only those type of students that were coming new to the country or had only been here like a year or two. So they were meant to be there temporarily, and then they were supposed to test out, is how it worked, to go into the mainstream public school system. So the main differences I can say is that, and just bear in mind that since I've been here in Abu Dhabi, I've only really taught at the university level, and I taught writing. So those students were different in the sense that they knew English, or they know English, I should say, whereas the students I work with didn't know any. So it's a totally different sort of vibe, comparing the two types of, where I came from and where I am now. I have noticed, like, what really counts for those students that I work with is having that support, having that support at home, and then also within the schools. It's really hard learning a language, to be honest. We don't, I guess for you and I, like, we can say, well, I know English, it's what's the big deal? But like, when you meet someone for the first time who doesn't know anything as far as the main language that they're hearing around them, it can be pretty intimidating for them.
Right.
So I've learned to really just be very patient, whether the student knows a lot of English or little, or their writing isn't the greatest, or whatever the case is. So honestly, I try to have the same overall attitude with any type of student I work with, whether they're young or older or in between, So yeah, I think that's the main difference for me, is just the proficiency level. That's really it. At the end of the day, everybody wants to learn, or at least wants better for themselves, even if some of the students I work with have been difficult or don't really express that. I know that it's probably coming from a place of embarrassment or feeling like, oh, I don't know this. This is frustrating. We've all probably been there. When you learn something new, it's harder in the beginning than it is once you start getting into it. So
Right.
yeah, that's pretty much what I can say, similarities and differences about that.
Yeah, I think you brought up a really good point about the support system, because you can see that in no matter what school system you're in, a student trying to learn something for the first time and being reinforced and encouraged that, hey, you're on the right track, that's very important. And something
Yes.
else I thought about with respect to the shutdowns, did you see the pattern of changes in education in terms of being taught at home? Because I know that some campuses there were closed just like they were here.
Right. Honestly, it's so funny you bring that up because I was at the point in my contract where it was just ending when we just switched over to online teaching. So I did it about, I want to say a couple weeks. I will say two things. I'm a mom of two boys at home. So parents who work and are, let's say this, if you're a parent and you're working from home during, the whole this COVID era that we are in, props to you, because it is so difficult to try to get to focus and be professional on top
Yes.
of having other distractions at home. That's one thing I'll say. That was difficult transition for me and a lot of parents that I've spoken to are professionals. The second thing is that I've noticed here it's a big transition for them to go to online teaching because it's not something they're used to. And this is what I've heard. Not so much maybe even in the university level, because I remember one of the professors I worked with, I was an instructor in his class, and he was telling the students, like, I know some of you, this is probably new. You're not used to it. There's a certain etiquette that you have to have when you're, learning online and teaching online. So
Right.
bear that in mind as well. So it's really draining. Honestly, that's my experience, is that I found it to be very draining to be in front of the computer and constantly have to be like, on, right? And
Yes.
it's different. Like the interaction you're having is still with people online. It's just that it's different. It's totally different than when you're face to face and you get to go out and get fresh air and kind of break up your day. Whereas when you're on the computer, it's like meeting after meeting. It's a lot. It's very taxing on the body. So I feel like self-care is definitely important. Like that word is thrown around a lot. Self-care, self-care. But I feel like it's so crucial to have that in your life, or at least have support where you can take a break every now and then. You have children at home or other responsibilities where you can just kind of step away from your day-to-day life, because it's a lot. It's a lot to deal with every day, teaching online as well as just being on the computer in general. So that's one thing I can say, is that working here as well as being a teacher, parent, and a teacher, it's definitely hard to do that. But it's the new norm, I guess. That's something we have to
Yeah.
get used to. So yeah, that's been my experience.
Yeah, that's a common theme that I'm hearing from a lot of parents here, especially those who are working from home and have their own Zoom meetings going on. And then the child is
Right.
in another room or maybe even the same room in class. And there's
Mm-hmm.
nowhere to really go because a lot of the public
Yeah.
libraries are closed. The cafes that people could usually go to, a lot of them are closed. You're only able
Mm-hmm.
to pick up your orders, but you can't actually stay there and be on the computer. So it can be a
Right.
huge challenge for everyone involved.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. It is a challenge, but I think it's something that we've been in this about, I've lost track of time, maybe 7 months since the initial breakout of the whole virus. And I feel like people are now learning to adjust and kind of like maneuvering around any red tape when it comes to like being home and with children, or even just being at home, even if you're like, you, it's different when you're like introverted versus extroverted. Some people cannot stand being at home. They want to be out,
Right.
but it's just something you have to like just adjust to, right? So
We had that same issue here in Florida. I wasn't there at the time, but during spring break, people were just like, forget all the rules and regulations. We're going down for spring break. It's spring break. I don't care. And the
right.
cases just shot up after that.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So
People
it's
need to understand that this is for your own good. It's not meant to just keep you imprisoned at home. It's to protect you at the end of the day. But I mean, you cannot stop people unless, like, here they're very strict. Oh my gosh, like they will fine you, or there's consequences, I'll put it that way. I think in the States it's a little harder because every state, every city has its own regulations and policies. And so, who wants to be the bad guy when you're telling everyone, stay home, don't go out?
right.
Yeah, you just have to protect yourself at the end of the day and just look out for your family and loved ones.
That's so true. And even here, we have the big holiday Thanksgiving, and some specialists are saying they're advising against large gatherings, even in your own home, more than
Oh
seven
yeah.
people, which automatically pretty much cancels all those holiday festivities. So it's
Right.
definitely something new that we're not used to.
Yeah, I totally agree. But like I said, it's for your own good, really. You don't want to have this in your life, like personally be affected by it. So it's better to just distance yourself from others as much as possible if you can.
Right, very good point. One thing I've also noticed here is a lot of restaurants are transitioning to outdoor seating. So have you noticed anything similar with that in Abu Dhabi?
To be honest, I'm in a restaurant right now, speaking of, and I'm looking around, nobody's outside because it's hot here. It's
Yes.
very, it's uncomfortably warm. So to be honest, when you are in restaurants, so there is a capacity of how many people they're willing to take. And then also a lot of restaurants are, excuse me, a lot of restaurants are doing this thing where you have to call ahead and place a reservation. Even though you may not be used to that, when they know there's like peak times, like here, the restaurant I'm in, they have like an all day breakfast type of thing on weekends up until 5. And so you have to like call ahead. And so that, and then, they separate the seating. It's pretty, like, I think people here are very respectful of your boundaries because there's a lot of expats such as myself and others from different countries. And then it's a very international feel when you walk around Abu Dhabi, Dubai. And so people understand, like, you need to have like your boundaries, and not everybody wants you in their space in general. So the COVID, what it's really done is kind of like solidify that even more, to say like, yeah, no, we don't want this virus coming up in here or any. And they check your temperature everywhere you go. That's another thing. Anywhere you enter, they have to check your temperature. And I know that's just only a part of COVID, but it's really something that has to be done because it's taking precaution, right?
Right.
Hand sanitizer and that sort of thing too, keeping that on hand. So yeah, it's really just about managing this distancing is what it is here.
Yeah, definitely. I'm seeing the same thing here too. The temperature checking, asking if anyone's been exposed to anyone with COVID in the recent history, things like that. One thing that you brought up too with the cultural norms is, at least here, I know people are used to giving their handshakes, their hugs. Now it's more of an elbow bump, more hugging, no more
Yeah.
staying really close to anyone or even having like packed elevators. So before COVID, for people who have never been to Abu Dhabi or are not familiar with the culture, could you just tell us some of the cultural norms you have observed?
So what I've noticed is like people here, it's a predominantly Muslim country, so it's very common to see women give each other a kiss on the cheek, like mwah, mwah, like two or three, actually 3 or 4 times. Like the more you do it, like I guess that means the closer you are to the person, or you're very happy to see them. With the men, it's usually the Emiratis that live here, the locals. Men do this thing which I think is so interesting, but like they like touch noses and kind of almost like Eskimo kiss, like
Oh,
yeah, I've seen that where they just touch the nose together and shake each other's hand at the same time. You don't see that anymore now
right.
at
Yeah.
all, but I've seen that before. And like even for me, I come from a Somali background. We do the same thing where women, tend to do the kissing thing. But now it's more like a, hey, how you doing? How's it going?
Right.
Kind of thing. You don't even try to get too close anymore, just because, just out of just knowing that, like, yo, COVID's really out there. So, but yeah, I think people here tend to be very like friendly and respectful, like I said, and they will greet you though. They'll say the traditional assalamu alaikum, which means peace be onto you. Or if you're not Muslim, you could just say salam, which is peace. So yeah, that's very common for people to greet each other in that way, like a warm and friendly type of way. Or in Arabic, they say marhaba, which means welcome, like welcome, come on in, kind of thing. So yeah, it's people will still greet you regardless.
Yeah, it's funny you brought that up because actually here, the greetings have gone down, I think. If you're not in a
Wow.
business space, yeah, people just,
Right.
their eyes are on the floor. They're like, stay away from me. The mask also
Yeah.
makes it hard because I think in the States, a lot has to do with facial expression. So you can't tell if people are smiling, you can't tell if they're mad. And it's kind
Right.
of added challenged to interacting with people outside.
Right. I could see that, honestly. I could see that being the case. Like here, it's very interesting because people, like I said, do stick to themselves. But, you know, if you know somebody, like I said, or if you're going into a public space where there's a host or hostess, they will greet you still. But, I mean, you have the mask on. I mean, I'm sure they can tell, like, hey, you know, it's still protocol to do that, you know. Yeah, it's just, I guess it's people's preferences too, how they feel like they're probably just as nervous as you are and don't know how to act. Everyone's just awkward now. That's one, you know, negative thing I can say about what COVID has done. So yeah, you just have to get used to it, I guess, now, for now.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And hopefully, this will be over soon and people can get back to being warm again. I know it's still been warm in terms of greetings in Abu Dhabi, but I'm hoping that things can go back to normal here in the States as well.
Yeah, I agree.
So I had another question regarding your history in literacy and language. What sparked your passion for reading and these subjects?
I think for me, it started at an early age. I've always been like intrigued by reading in general. Like, I think it was just having memories of my mom taking us to the library and, you know, getting as many books as we could and just kind of going through, seeing the pictures and reading the words off the page. And I think at an early age, my father encouraged me to write. I don't know, for me, like, I've always felt like I had a gift as a writer, writing poetry and like short stories and that sort of thing. And even well into high school, I think once I entered college, I kind of just stopped a bit because life got real and, you know, you're busy with doing academic papers and that sort of thing. But
Right.
I've recently started back up into it because I almost forgot how freeing it is to just sit there and write my thoughts out and,
Hmm.
you know, really touch people with my words. I've never been one to kind of publicly share my writings, but as of recently, I have been doing that through a former coworker and friend. She has a website, and I pretty much asked her one day, like, can I contribute to your website? Because I saw it as her website basically is a platform for women of color to be able to share their story, share their voice in any sort of written narrative form, whether it's a prose piece or poetry or, you know, um, pretty much it's one of the two, prose piece or like a poetry type of written art, work of art. And so I started doing that, and I was just like, this is like awkward. I mean, it's not awkward, but it's almost like it's almost like a scary, nervous feeling that I get every time she goes, okay, your piece is up now. And I'm like, oh gosh, I wonder what people are going to think, because these are like my thoughts, or these are at least, sometimes, you know, your imagination can be so big. And so when you write it down, you have to really condense it and just try to make sure you're getting the point across. So I
Right.
always try to keep in mind my audience. So that's a little bit about how my love for reading and writing started at a young age. Is, like I said, you know, just being introduced to it early and continuing with it and realizing, okay, I have a gift. I do have something to share, and I want to share that.
I think that's really excellent. And just like you, I've always had that interest in reading, writing, poetry, and not one to share. But I think, like you said, it's very important to get that your thoughts out there because,
Mm-hmm.
especially the platform that you're using, which this is the Wellspring Words website.
Yes, correct.
So you're representing women of color and giving a voice. So I think that's very important.
Yeah, and I think the good thing, like, even, and this could be about any platform really, like any woman or woman of color, I should say, that has a platform such as Wellspring Words, it's really important, like, to have different topics, such as on her website, she has body, love, faith and spirit, sorry, not faith, but spirit, spirituality. I'm forgetting one. There's four, but I can't remember the last one. But identity. That's an important one. Identity. And so those are very important avenues that you can touch on easily as a woman, especially a woman of color, being identity, body. I mean, well, you can just go any route and just kind of share your story in that way. So I think it's what's even more important. It's not really about you per se. It is about the writer, in a sense that you're able to express yourself and kind of start like a healing process for yourself, because you may not have thought about things that you didn't realize were triggers for you in a while, that when you start writing, you realize, wow, I really overcame some things.
Right.
It doesn't have to always be that deep, but sometimes it can be, or it could be like almost like you're opening old wounds. But what's really empowering is seeing that other people feel the same way and could relate. And it doesn't have to be like women just reading it. Sometimes I notice like men comment too on the website. But
Right.
even with men or women commenting, it's really empowering to feel like, wow, other people really feel this or get me and understand where I'm coming from. So I think that's really important too, is to realize that sometimes it's bigger than just you. And you have to put a little bit of yourself out there to realize how much of a big impact you can make on others just by your words and how powerful it is.
Wow, that's big. And I think,
Yeah.
especially during this time when we've been seeing so many movements against social injustice around the world, against people of color, I think these platforms are very inspiring and uplifting because it
Yes.
gives that movement a voice, as well as a chance to focus on more positive times
For
and
sure.
start that healing process. When it comes to the pieces that you submit to this website, what form do they usually take? Is it usually poetry, short stories?
It's really up to you as the writer, how you want to. What I've noticed, to be honest, is that a lot of the people who contribute do poetry style, or sometimes like a prose piece. Like for me, for instance, I do a lot of like, recently I did a prose piece, so it was almost it was like metaphorical in a sense. And when you're reading it, it's a lot of imagery, vivid imagery, so you kind of can do it any way you want. It is edited. The friend of mine whose website it is, she does edit them and give like her suggestions a little bit. It's not to tweak your message, it's just
Right.
really just to kind of make sure you're getting what you want to say across in the best way possible. But it's really up to the writer, to be honest. Just the main thing is sticking to the topic at hand, and then also keeping in mind the audience. Like, you, as a woman of color, you want to keep it positive and uplifting too. You don't want to like send the wrong message across. You don't
Right.
want it to come across as being some sort of bigot or downing women of color. Or, I mean, it's really, at the end of the day, it's you telling your story. So you just want to keep in mind that you can keep it as honest and as real and as vulnerable as you like, but just also bear in mind that, as other people are reading it, you want to be respectful of the type of message you're sending across in a way. I hope that makes sense, and I hope that I didn't
Yes.
like butcher the meaning of it. But yeah, so that's really what it is. It's any kind of writing you want to do.
I think that's great because it doesn't limit the creative process and also makes for a diverse publication. So I think that's really cool to see all these
Yeah,
different
for
ideas
sure.
coming together. What is one topic that you have seen mainly as a possible recurring theme in what you've submitted to this website?
Um, so because there's various topics that you can do, like out of the four I mentioned, what I've noticed is, like, for me, I try to like, I've only submitted twice so far, and I'll do a third time again this month. But what I've noticed is, like, a lot of people gravitate towards identity. I think that's probably it encompasses everything in a sense, or it's really about the self, whether it's your inner self, or outwardly how you are, how you represent, how, what kind of representation do you have for, what kind of message are you sending to the world with how you represent yourself. So I think identity is a big one. That's the first one I started with, because I realized, you know what, I'm a Muslim woman of color, and I wear the hijab, And I've been wearing it for so long that I kind of want to go back in time and talk about how I started wearing it, because I'm an American Muslim woman, right? And so being in America, especially with all the, oh my gosh, all the craziness going on out there, there was a time where Muslims, and even now you could say with 9/11 and all, where Muslims were looked at as this sort of enigma, like, what are these people? Why are they always covered? Why are these women always silenced? And they don't have a, they're oppressed. And I was like, no, it's not about that. So for me, I wanted to share my story about how I started wearing the hijab and how it was really an internal struggle with myself to really put it on and put it on for the right reasons and keep it on, and not really listen to whatever anyone else had to feel about that or think about it. So I think that's one big topic that a lot of women gravitate towards as writers and as readers, is identity, because it really is a reflection of who we are as women, to share who you are based on your identity.
Right. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense to me, because with everything going on, people can kind of lose sense of their identity because they're
Right.
just contemplating all the chaos and everything. So it's nice to reconnect with that through writing and through that creative process.
Definitely. Yeah, for sure. I agree.
And when you talked about wearing the hijab for the right reasons, I have a lot of friends who are Muslim as well. Some wear the hijab, some do not. In terms of deciding to wear the hijab, what were some of the struggles that you personally experienced in the decision making process?
To be honest, thankfully, I've never experienced, well, okay, so I never experienced any overtly obvious racism, but I have noticed like some people will kind of be like, oh, I didn't know you could speak English that well. Like, okay, it wasn't like, it was basically, that's what they were getting at. It's like,
Right.
so you grew up in America. So you're from America. I'm like, well, my parents are from Somalia, but yes, I grew up in America. Oh, okay, that makes sense then. So it's almost like, wait, did I miss something here? Like, what did you think? What did you think I was gonna say, or how was I supposed to sound?
Right.
That was one thing I noticed, but that didn't faze me, because I'm like, that's just someone's ignorance. They don't know that women who cover and wear hijab are just like you. At the end of the day, we don't sleep with this, we don't shower in this. Like, I'm a woman just like you, or I'm a person just like you. Or I think the one time that it bothered me a little bit was, I remember being in line. I was at a career fair for a teaching career fair, and I was waiting in line, and I remember one of the women who I guess was facilitating the career fair came and said, um, so um, if you're not here for the career fair, then you're supposed to wait in the. Basically, there was another man in front of me,
Right.
another man of some other ethnic descent, and she said, "Oh, if you're, basically, if you're just his wife, then you should not be in line. Like, you should be waiting somewhere." And I just said, "I'm not. I don't even know this guy. Like,
Yeah.
I'm here for the career fair."
Oh
And
my
sometimes you
goodness.
just have to ignore stuff like that. Like, you shouldn't. I could have easily went off on her, really been like, what are you trying to say? What do you think? Like, just because I'm covered up. And so I was just like, no, I'm here on my own behalf, and I don't know this guy. And we just kind of, everyone who was around us was like, wow, like, did she really just say that? So it's things like that that I notice, like, people have these stereotypes and are prejudiced, because they just automatically assume, like, oh, she's just a stay-at-home mom or housewife, and she's submissive and oppressed. And it's like, no, like, I'm an educated Black woman. I'm American as well, just as much as I am Somali, and I'm Muslim. And at the end of the day, like, I have a voice and I can use it. And this doesn't mean anything except this does, it is symbolic of my faith, yes. Really, this is for my connection with my creator. This is
Right.
really all it represents. And it's just a form of modesty is what it is. It's just
Yes.
respecting yourself, being modest. And that's not to say that women who don't cover, who are Muslim or who are not Muslim, are not modest and not respectful of themselves. It's just really showing you like, yes, I am Muslim. That's really what it is. It's a symbolic representation of the fact that I'm a Muslim woman, because if I didn't have it on, you wouldn't know otherwise, right? So
Right.
that's one way to look at it, is that it's really me symbolizing the fact that I'm a Muslim woman, and that's really it. So sorry, girl, I get really heated about stuff
No,
like
I totally understand, because I've heard that conversation too. People assuming that Muslim women are oppressed and don't have a voice. And it's quite the opposite, I've found. Educated, empowering, and on top of that, bold for being able to have that statement saying, this is who I am, is one of the utmost signs of identity that you can actually see in
right.
society.
Yes, for sure. And it's really, honestly, it makes me no different. At the end of the day, when I go home, I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a woman. Like, I do what women do, like a regular woman does. So I don't see it as I'm no different than the next lady sitting next to me. You know, we have the same fears and hopes and dreams and insecurities, and you know, we go through the same things. It's just everyone looks different. I wish people would understand that. Like, even with this whole, you know, Black Lives Matter movement, it's like Black lives have always mattered, yes, and women have always mattered, yes, and it's like Muslims have always mattered, yes. So it's really any minority you put in front of it. We want, me as a speaking as a woman of color, it's like we do matter, and like, you shouldn't, I don't think one human life is greater than the next. It doesn't matter what color you are or what status or power you have. It really does not matter at the end of the day, because we all will come into this earth the same and leave this earth the same. So
Exactly.
I just, it's mind blowing how people can have that much hatred in their heart, but it's real and it's out there. And what matters is that we as women of color represent ourselves the best way possible to show people that, hey, we're doing it out here just like you are. You know, I know you are medical doctor in training, so you're right there, and you know, every day you probably see different people, and you know, in healthcare, like how you don't look at a person's skin color and say, oh, I can't help you because you're Black or you're white or you're Asian or you're whatever. You know, you
Right.
have to put yourself aside and put others first. Sometimes that's just how it should be, but unfortunately it's not. But you know, hopefully one day things will progress and people will realize, like, oh, okay, maybe I am wrong for discriminating against people because of the color of their skin.
Right. And you would think that that day would have happened before 2020. Like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
surprised that it's still to this extent, and actually seems more overtly so, that people are
Mm-hmm.
more willing to be like, this is where I stand, I'm racist, and, this is how I've always felt. And I'm just
Yeah.
wondering what that shift was. Sometimes I think people can see that the people in power now have led to
Mm-hmm.
that
Yeah.
stage of being able to voice those hateful opinions. But we're all hoping
Yeah.
that things change very soon.
For sure. I hope so. I think one thing I'll say about this is that I think 2020 has been an eye-opening year for everyone, because everything is just stripped away, all the distractions, all the, you know, it's not so pretty, you know what I mean, anymore,
Right.
where there's real, aside from Corona, we know that's going on, you know, lives have been just completely shifted, you know, with everything going on. And so I just want to say, like, I hope that if 2020 didn't open your eyes to the realness of how things can be, then I don't know what it's going to take. Because this is
Yeah.
definitely, yeah, it's been a challenging yet almost like spiritually awakening for everyone, you know,
Mm.
to just look within and realize, like, wow, there's so much going on that I didn't realize until I was just sitting at home and thinking a lot, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, hopefully it'll change. Things will get better.
Yeah, I think that's a great point that you brought up, because a lot of people have had more time to be introspective, and
Mm-hmm.
also starting new hobbies and going to skills that they never had time to do before. So it's a very transformative year, globally speaking, for everyone. I
Yeah,
don't think anyone can say that their life has not been impacted by 2020 on a major scale.
yeah, for sure. I agree. Definitely.
Yeah, and I know earlier we were talking about wellness and self-care. And you actually have been a very vocal advocate for healthy living. So can you tell us some ways that you've demonstrated this interest via your social media platforms?
Yeah, so back in, I want to say it was 2018, I think I had just, well, let me back up. 2017, I gave birth to my second son, and I didn't feel like myself, and I was just like, man, I don't know what's going on, but anytime I eat the foods I was eating, I did not feel settled, you know. I almost like my body was telling me you need to make a change. So something told me to just look into veganism,
Mm,
and I went that route because I noticed like dairy was an issue for me. And so I figured, well, let me check this out and see what this whole vegan thing is about. And I think at that time I was following Maya, the R&B singer, and I know she talked a lot and posted a lot about being vegan and how it's changed her life and all that. And so, and I don't remember, and I could be wrong, maybe she was having challenges at that time. I'm not 100% sure, but something told me like, just inquire. Actually, she was, now that I think about it, because I remember saying, well, she's doing a challenge, maybe I should look into that and see how what it will do for me. So I made little changes, you know, and then I started a vegan page. At that time it was called Vegan Muslima, and then I changed it later to Holistic Plant Life because I wanted it to be more holistic in the sense of you know, just being about plant-based foods really. And
right.
so I did the challenge in 2018. I committed to it for it. She does it in quarters for each quarter of the year. So I was the third quarter challenge winner.
Mm,
And so when I did it, I was like committed to it. I was really trying my best to stick to as plant-based as I could be by cutting out the meats and cutting out the dairy and, you know, that sort of thing. And it really got me into the kitchen. I started cooking for myself more and finding all these vegan goodies that I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize how many plant-based foods were out there. So that's pretty much like my holistic plant life page is dedicated to nothing but veganism and plant-based foods and how to, you know, treat yourself holistically. To be honest, I haven't been as active on there just because it's just been like a busy year for me since I moved here, I should say. But yeah, I think honestly it's very crucial for everyone to take care of themselves. And I'm not preaching like go vegan, go vegan. I'm not saying
right.
that, but what I'm saying is do what works for you, because I'll be quite frank and say after the challenge, I kept it up. I continued with a vegan diet. However, when I moved here, I noticed it was a total shift for me because I was now the sole cooker of the house, and I
Mm,
was like, yo, I cannot do like 2-3 different meals. You know, once I get done cooking for the house, I got to cook for myself. It got very tiring quickly, and it's a little bit more expensive here, I'm not gonna lie,
right.
being on a plant-based diet. So I kind of had to switch over to vegetarian, and at this point in my life I do eat halal, which is, I don't know if you're familiar with that or if you've heard of eating halal.
Oh, yes.
Which, yeah, which is basically like you eat, for anyone watching this who doesn't know what that means, it's basically when you eat food, the meat, sorry, the animal, when it's killed in basically the most humane way possible, where they bless the animal first, and then, you know, instead of doing all that crazy stuff you hear about, which is
Right.
why a lot of people choose to do a vegan diet, it's
Hmm.
really, it's giving the animal, it's, you know, blessing the animal first, and then not, it's a whole thing I'd have to explain, but basically I'm saying that I do eat halal and I do eat vegan. So the vegan
Right.
vegetarian. So I don't restrict myself, because at least for me, I know spiritually and mentally and physically, I'm doing the best that I can for myself, at least in the present moment. And so
Right.
maybe when I move back, or if I move back to the States or anywhere else, I might go back to fully vegan if I cannot find halal options to eat, halal meat. So yeah, that's pretty much where, sorry, I gave like a whole spiel about that, but I'm very um, passionate about taking care of yourself and eating, living a holistic lifestyle.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, especially since for a lot of people, even in the States, it is hard to obtain a lot of those vegan foods because they tend to be more expensive in some respects. I know if people stuck
Yes.
strictly to just fruits and vegetables, that might be cheaper than getting meat and everything. However, that gets into a whole conversation of access to healthy food,
Yeah.
especially in the low income neighborhoods.
Right.
So, and there's actually a lot of gardens here that have been coming up, like in my area, Philadelphia area, where they grow fruits and vegetables and gift them to people who are low income. So it actually helps promote
Wow.
that lifestyle. And it's very important coming from a preventative medicine standpoint of lowering
Yes.
diabetes and high blood pressure and all of that. So
Mm-hmm.
totally agree with you. And then, so can you give us all the details on your trip to Costa Rica with Maya?
Basically, that year when I did the challenge, I'll finish up by saying that I did the challenge, and luckily, I was very grateful that I won it for that quarter specifically. And what Maya decided to do was, I will say that she did gift myself and the other competitors that were in that quarter, the finalists, I should say, in that quarter that I did the challenge. She did gift us some nice goodie kitchen utensils, like kitchen, I guess you could say, tools, like a juicer, excuse me, a juicer, and an air fryer, and just some nice little things to kind of get you going, continuing with the vegan lifestyle.
Right.
But the Costa Rica trip was really nice. It was planned for each quarter winner that won. There's four of us, three other women besides myself. So for all four of us, she planned the trip. We were in touch, with one of her managers, who kind of just gave us the details of everything. And the trip was planned for January, which was, I believe, in Costa Rica, it was nice, warm weather. So we all got a good getaway for about a week to go to Costa Rica and just enjoy ourselves and really enjoy just being around other like-minded people who, did the challenge and whatnot.
Right.
Maya she was a sweetheart. She was very nice, very laid back. I think we were all kind of reserved in our own way. Where it was like, I don't know you, you don't know me, But
Yeah.
it was nice though, because she had also one of her videographer was there, so he was there capturing everything on video and
Oh,
recording
perfect.
all that was going on. So yeah, it was nice cinematography at the end when we saw the YouTube video that he put together. Yeah, we really, it was really nice for me getting outside of my comfort zone, going to a country I've never been before, enjoying the waterfalls, the hiking, and the animals that we saw, and just the fresh air, and just the fresh food. Like the food there was just amazing. The fruits, the veggies, everything we had. So yeah, I think anyone who's interested in a vegan challenge should definitely look into Maya Planet 9, her Instagram handle, and just check out what she's doing, because she's really, you know, she's really uplifting and positive. And you don't see that a lot nowadays with, I don't want to say most people, but unfortunately not a lot of people are trying to be as positive, especially coming from the entertainment world.
Right.
It's really, it's really just about monetary gain. But for her, I think it's more to it than just that. She really wants to promote a holistic, healthy lifestyle for her followers. And for anyone who's interested in that, I would say definitely look into the vegan challenges that she does every quarter of the year or so. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing I've also noticed too about her page is she has a lot of information about the health benefits of going vegan or at least having a plant-based lifestyle that
Right.
not too many other artists can say that they do. That it's all about monetary possessions and maybe just highlights about their own career, but she rarely really talks about herself except for maybe new project releases, and it's mainly about getting her followers healthy. So I think that's a great platform that she's been using.
Yeah, and one thing she does have is you could probably jog my memory, but a PDF file where she encompasses all her
Yeah.
vegan starter guide that she has is very helpful. I have that downloaded, so every now and then I like to look at it and get some ideas. It's very thorough, And I think it's helpful because if you're starting out, you might feel overwhelmed. Like there's so many ways you can go with being vegan. But I will caution anyone looking into it is really check your, I guess it's your caloric intake. Like make sure you're getting enough calories, because I think that was a mistake I made. I don't want to say I was an unhealthy vegan, but I was mostly initially living off of like the products you buy at the stores, like the manufactured like
Oh,
meats
right.
and, you know, stuff like that. And I don't think that's the way to go unless you want to dabble in that here and there. But I would say really check your weight and make sure like you're not losing too much if you tend to like make sure you're basically having a balanced diet is what I'm trying to say. And
Right.
I had to kind of, and that's for me, that's why I kind of had to step back and continue eating listening to my body. Like I couldn't sustain a vegan lifestyle the way I wanted to here. So I had to pull back and say, you know what, let me do what's best for me and not restrict myself. So that's one thing I would say is that being vegan doesn't make you a better person. It doesn't make you like holier than thou. And I don't want people to get this sense that being vegan is something unattainable either. Like you could have some oatmeal, some fruit, and there you had a vegan breakfast right there. If you did like non-dairy, or if you just chose to make it with water, that's a vegan breakfast.
Right.
So yeah, I say listen to your body and take care of yourself as far as your health. What works for you, you should just do that. And that's really my advice to anyone looking to sustain a better, healthier lifestyle.
Yeah, I think what you mentioned is very true about listening to your body. Mind the food groups that you're getting in terms of the macronutrients, because one thing that people often forget is getting enough protein, getting enough of the individual vitamins, because many are deficient in certain vitamins. So you need to be
Right.
mindful of that. But I remember when I did my Maya's vegan challenge, I went cold turkey. I just said, I'm starting today. And I
Oh,
was like,
wow.
no meat. And it was, I feel as though when I'm shifting to something, I can't just gradually go into it. I just have to do it.
Yeah, I'm the
So I
same
did,
way.
yeah. I think I started off with a 14-day one. And I was surprised to see, like you said, how many vegan options there were out there. And I did kind
Yeah.
of start with the vegan meats, and then I slowly phased those out and just went to the vegetables and fruits and lentils only. And I'll tell everyone out there that it does not just automatically decrease your weight. You still have to
Yeah.
exercise and you still have to be mindful of your caloric
Yes.
intake. But it's
Yes.
definitely a good way to get started being more health conscious for sure.
Right. Yeah, it's a good detox, I would say.
Yes.
Because I do, as a Muslim, I do fast. Every year, as Muslims, we do fast for Ramadan. And it really helps you to detox and clear your system out from any kind of like starchy, heavy foods that you may be used to eating. So it's good to give your body a break, I would say. Even if you decide, you know what, I can't do a whole vegan, whatever diet, I think you should at least give your body some rest and try to like reset, you know, your digestive system here and there when you can. Because it's really just at the end of the day, you get better sleep. You know, there's so many benefits to it, more energy. Exercise is important. That's something that I think I'm still trying to get myself to do. So yes, exercise is one thing that you should do and not look at it like, oh, just take care of my food and that's it. Like if you're exercising, that will also help you to balance out better than if you don't exercise and you're just eating whatever you want, you know?
Right. And I totally agree with the detox aspect, because I know, especially with the juicing, it's a nice way to feel just lighter and you have that mental clarity.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just a really transformative experience that once you start feeling those benefits, it's easier to stick with it for the time being. But as you said,
Yes.
life happens and sometimes it gets difficult to maintain. So, just have
Right.
to listen to your body.
For sure. Yeah, I totally agree.
Yes. And another thing I just wanted to ask you is, in terms of the next 5 years, what plans do you have for your career and business interests?
Next 5 years. Wow. That's something I think about often, to be honest. I think for me, I want to continue living here in Abu Dhabi and teaching. I have more or less a 2 to 3 year plan to live here and just save up, you know, and take care of my family and that sort of thing, and continue teaching in my profession. But I think eventually, I mean, honestly, like I've spoken to you about this a little bit, but I'm looking into other avenues potentially. I don't want to speak too prematurely on it, but I'm thinking like for me, I'm very big on reinventing yourself when you feel like you're ready for a change. And if you feel like, I think it's always important to go listen to yourself and look into what your calling is or what you feel like you're destined to do. That's something that I've been really chasing for a lot of, since my adult life, I should say. I've been really trying to figure out what is it, where do I want to be career wise. Teaching is very rewarding, and it's taught me a lot about myself. It taught me a lot about how to work with others. But I think for me, I want to look into other avenues, maybe go back to school, start another career of some sort. I still feel like for me, it's a gift to be someone who's as helpful as I am. And that's something that I've learned about myself over time, is that I try to be as giving as I can. And sometimes it can be taxing, but I know at the end of the day, it's for a bigger purpose than just, it's not about give and take, give and take, give and take. It's really about satisfying. Um, it's really hard to explain, but for me, it's more of like a spiritual sense of calm that I feel when I help others, feeling like, if you do if you do right by others, then, maybe God will do right by you in a way. It's like karma in a sense,
Right.
And so I feel like I want to increase as many chances as I can to help others by looking into other more fulfilling career avenues for myself, that I only get one side to it in teaching. And so if I was to go into another profession, I feel like it would kind of like align more with who I am, internally.
Right.
So I think that's something that I want to pursue, is possibly another career, and, just see where that takes me. It's too early to say like how that's going to look. I don't know, but I hope to manifest that by just being diligent and creating a plan for myself, and, just really taking the time to get to know who I am, continuing to just do the best that I can with what I have now and being grateful for that. So that's something that I want to eventually look into, is, continuing to work, then also look into something else in the future.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. And I think that a lot of people in their careers, as it progresses, do find themselves wanting to serve more. And
Mm-hmm.
that is the most fulfilling experience that you can actually have because, like you said, that positive energy comes back to you in the form
Yes.
of, I think, peace and spiritual awareness. So it's really great that you have not kind of put a cap on what you can do because a
Right.
lot of people are like, okay, I've hit this point in life and after this, I don't think there's much more to do. But
Mm.
I say that as long as you have breath, you can learn something new and you can do
Oh
something
yeah.
new in your life. So that's
Yeah.
wonderful.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. I think it's not. It's better to, why limit yourself? I mean, really, what do you have to lose if you don't try? And that's something that I've been battling a lot, is having that fear of, well, what will people think? Oh my gosh, like, how can I just do like a whole plot twist? I'm a mom and I've already established myself. Like, how can I just switch it up now and start from the bottom up again? But I don't. I think that's fear talking, and that's something that I've tried to like put in the background now, and realize that everything will happen the way it's supposed to. And I always pray for opportunities for doors to open up for me. And that's one thing that is very positive, is just having like this whole mental, not limiting yourself mentally, because once you do that, everything else just kind of slows down, and
Oh,
you
yeah.
may miss opportunities or not even realize there's opportunities in front of you if your mentality is like, no, that's not for me, or no, I can't do this. Like, that's very limiting speech to say I can't, or I don't, or I won't. So that's one thing I've been working on, like since 2020 is having positive self-talk and really trying not to keep up this negative or this limiting behavior that could really, you know, close doors for me. It's just not right to do, and it's almost like debilitating when you put yourself in that sort of position.
Oh yeah, for sure. Having those words in your vocabulary, like can't and all those uncertain phrases, I think, like you said, is very limiting. As soon as you say you can do something, you will find a door or window of opportunity that you didn't think about. And so
Yeah.
it's all has to do with their mental. And that's why a lot of people don't like to say what crazy plans they have, because someone's going to be there to say, "Oh, are you sure that can work out?" And
Yeah.
you don't need that speech in your life. So as long as you're your own cheerleader, I think anything is possible.
For sure. And it is, I will say, support is good for you when you've realized, like, I've made a decision and I'm sticking by it and I'm going to pursue this. If you have the right support in your corner, that only makes you go further and keep
Right.
pushing and stay motivated. You know, you have to always know why you start something. That at the
Yes.
end of the day is what's important, is why did I start this? And that should keep you going with whatever you choose to do, whether it's a diet, certain diet you follow, or lifestyle, or career, or relationship. You have to know what is your why. And I think
Yes.
that will change so many things for a person if they realize, like, okay, this is something coming from me, and this is something that my spirit needs to feel at peace, and almost like this is a calling for me. So I think that's one positive way to look at it as well, is just know what you want at the end of the day. It's not about other people. You just have to really apply yourself and try your best. And then you can say later, like, okay, that didn't work out, or or maybe this did work and I'm glad I stuck by it. So that's
Right.
one way to look at it too. Yeah.
That's excellent advice. And speaking of advice, do you have any final words of encouragement or advice for people who might want to get into your line of work, whether it's writing for a literary publication or teaching?
I would say if it's teaching that you're looking into, I would say definitely. I think teaching is for a specific. Teaching is very interesting because just like in the medical field that you're in, being a doctor, or if you decide, you know, whatever, it's a service, right? It's a
Right.
service type of profession. So I feel like you have to make sure in your heart that you are willing to sacrifice time and energy and your patience on other people who are depending on you to teach them whatever it is that is on your lesson plan, or that, you know, that you've set out to do. Because I feel like teaching is one of those, being in teaching is it's a sort of profession that it can drain you, much like any type of service profession, but it's very rewarding. And you really have to find what speaks to you, you know, as far as what type of teacher you want to be, whether you want to work with adults, younger children, what content area. So it really starts at the core, finding out, you know, what is it that you want to do as far as being a teacher. And I've seen a lot of people transition into becoming a teacher from a different profession. You really are your own boss in a sense, even though you work in a school system or you have a principal. You kind of are the boss of the classroom, where you kind of run your classroom the way you want. That's where classroom management comes into place, and, you know, making sure like you're really creating a positive interaction with your students. As far as writing, I think the best thing is, even if you don't see yourself as the best writer or a gifted writer, I think starting with journaling is very important. Because when you journal, at least for me, when I journal, it's not about others, what, you know, others are not reading that. It's really just about me getting my thoughts out and having that mental clarity and having that space to really have a conversation with myself on paper. I think that's something that's helped me even in talking, because
Mm.
as much as I'm oftentimes in my head a lot. So when I write, it's like, oh, finally some relief. I can get some outlet and realize,
Right.
oh, okay, I'm tripping. Like, whatever I was worried about is not that deep after all. You know, it's almost like taking what's going on in my mind, putting it on paper, and realizing, like, wow, okay, this is making sense to me now, how my train of thought is going here. That's one thing I would say, is journaling is very important if you want to get into writing. And then two, finding a platform that works for you. So for me, wellspringwords.love is one that is for women of color, and I'm noticing its impact on other women and how it's affecting me positively. So that's something that I feel like it's a good, safe space, and it's a place where I can feel like I'm being almost like accepted and acknowledged, and my words are definitely doing something out there in the atmosphere for somebody. So I would say just journal and have that, find a community that works for you to be able to get your writing out, and your, maybe even start your own blog. I haven't done
Right.
that per se. I don't know if I ever will, but maybe even doing your own blog is something that you can create your own community for people to, join in and be able to share their voices as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I think those are excellent pieces of advice. And as you mentioned, especially with journaling, I think that can help a lot of people, no matter what their profession is, because being introspective and then being able to effectively communicate with others go hand in
Mm-hmm.
hand. So definitely good to get back in touch with yourself and evaluate what your current experience is, because we can't always do that up here. Sometimes we have to see it on paper.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, I don't know if I finished my thought, but what I was saying is, as I started writing more, I've realized I'm better at communicating verbally now because I'm reading more, I'm writing more, I'm able to speak more eloquently than not that I wasn't before, but sometimes, like, when you're out of the classroom for so long, or when, like, for me being with my children a lot, I almost have to bring it down a notch. So it's
Right.
like I'm not using my vocabulary to the extent that I would like to. So it's almost like your brain is a muscle. You have to use it, and I think that's something that we have to keep in mind. It's like our brain is a it's something that we have to try to exercise and try to use as much as possible. Yeah,
Yes.
so that's one thing I will say about that.
For sure. They say, well, if you don't use it, you lose it. So,
Yes, for sure. Yeah,
yeah.
I definitely agree. Yeah, yeah.
Well, Ayan, it's been such a pleasure speaking with you and hearing your perspective on so many important issues, as well
Yeah.
as your experience and what you've been doing professionally. So, thank you so much for taking this time out to speak with us on Testimony Tuesdays.
Thank you.
And just,
I've really enjoyed it.
oh, lovely. And would you be able to remind everyone, the viewers, where they can find you on social media and online?
Yeah, so for my vegan page, it's at Holistic Plant Life. And then my personal page, which is open for anyone who's interested in writing or seeing what types of work I'm doing these days as far as my writing, it's Ayan, Ayan, Fatima, Fatima _. And
Perfect.
that's both on Instagram.
Okay, great, great. Yeah, and I will link that as well when I post on Instagram so everyone can have that information.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. It's been such an honor and a pleasure taking time to chat with you on this lovely Saturday.
Oh, likewise. And I'm so glad that we were able to figure out how to work things out with the time difference, because I would not want you up at 3 a.m. on
Oh my
Instagram
gosh.
Live.
Oh, I don't even think I would be like functional at that point. But yeah, no, thank you so much for being flexible with me on the timing and all.
Oh, my pleasure. And my well wishes to your family and your friends and to you in these coming months. And we'll definitely be in touch.
All right. Thank you so much. Have a blessed day.
Thank you. You too. Have a blessed day.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye.